writing the report. So this is a scientific investigation. This is a scientific investigation. It's an investigation into the health of our nervous system. It's an investigation into how fast reflexes are, or how strong reflexes are, I should say, and how fast reactions are. And any investigation starts with a question. So our questions are, we've got 3 questions. I'm just writing this down briefly here. Which is faster, dominant or non-dominant hand when it comes to reactions to a ruler? Which is faster, reaction to a visual cue, a auditory cue, or a tactile cue? Question number 2. Question number 3 is which will elicit a stronger patellar reflex? The addition of Gendrasic's maneuver or without the Gendrasic's maneuver? Those are the 3 questions. Those are the 3 important questions. How many people have written reports before? Scientific reports with the whole schlemiel, the introduction, the results, the materials and methods, and all that. Okay. Anybody else ever write a report like this? A science report? Good. Okay, excellent. So there are some sections. There's protocol to writing up scientific reports, and they need to be followed because science and scientific research is under scrutiny. It must be done in an unbiased manner. There must be a good experimental design. Somebody that's looking at your report has to be able to repeat what you did, and you have to present the data in an understandable manner. And of course, when you write up your report, it's not just about the results. You have to introduce your results. So you have to have an introduction as well. So the parts of a report include your title page, of course, your introduction, your materials and methods, your results, your discussion, and your references. And in the end, you'll write an abstract. So let's talk about the introduction. The introduction section. So that'll be about 1.5 to 2 pages. And somebody's going to look at your results about reflexes and reactions, and then later on you'll be discussing it. And you're writing to scientists, but not necessarily neurologists. So you need to give some background information. So background about the nervous system. Why? because people's nervous systems are different. They may be faster or slower depending on the size of the neurons, their health. Speed is dependent also on myelination. So you want to discuss, or not discuss, I shouldn't say that, you want to introduce those kinds of terms. Introduce terminology about the nervous system, things like the brain, the spinal cord, reflexes, integration, those kinds of terms. And you always write the introduction from general things to more specific things. So start with general descriptions and then get specific to your study. And in this case, our study is about reactions and reflexes. So you're talking about things generally, and then you end up at the end with an explanation of reactions and reflexes. It doesn't have to be terribly, terribly long because you're going to be writing about it in the discussion as well. But just laying the groundwork. You might want a nice diagram here. So you can always put pictures in a diagram. Say somebody's sitting there, chair, this is their knee, and you'll see diagrams that show reflexes to the central nervous system, spinal cord, and back. You can use diagrams that are elsewhere. So you can use diagrams that are in the textbook or somewhere else, but if you do that, you have to acknowledge where that came from. That's called citing. It's very common. We always do it in science because all of the work that we do is built on the work of other people. And so somebody's made this discovery about reflexes, so anything that you report needs to be cited. You write everything in your own words. Paraphrase. It doesn't matter if it's somebody else's idea or thought, you paraphrase it. But at the end of your paraphrase, you must have a citation. So if you're citing me, for example, you would go Moreland 2021, if I've written a book or something. If you have a figure from somebody, you must always give it a figure number. You must always give it a title. And if you've gotten it from a book, you give it also a citation. And then when it comes to your reference section, you'll have this and this referenced. So yeah, you go to an explanation of reactions and reflexes, and that's good because that leads you into what you're testing. And so then you can say, we tested, reactions in a little more detail than what I'm writing now. You could say something like using the following methods. And that's known as a transition. So make sure you use transitions in your writing that lead a person from one section to the other. So that leads you to your materials and methods section. No, wait, it doesn't quite yet. It doesn't quite yet. Yes. And then At the end of the introduction, you also do need to state your hypotheses. You're writing it on your own now. We're not doing it in groups, so you can say, I hypothesize that. This is what you've already written down. You've already written part of your report. I hypothesize that 1, 2, 3. You should probably put this part below that part. Yeah. Because then you're leading right into the materials and methods, which is your next section. So after the introduction, you've got materials and methods. We're not doing it in the classroom this year, so you will just be referring to the lab manual. So you'll write it out in sentence form that you used the materials and methods in the lab manual. And then, of course, you'll cite the lab manual, which was written by Gordon McIntyre, one of our esteemed colleagues. Whose name I can't spell after 18 years of working together. Oh, that's terrible. Don't tell him. McIntyre, I'm not sure the latest edition. Oh, no, that's something else I don't know. I think it was 2017 or 2019, the lab manual. Let's see, I can look right now. 2017. Aha! Excellent. So that's your materials and methods. After the materials and methods, you present your results. Your results should be in a graph, and you also need a results summary. So you've got those 2 sheets of paper that I sent you, and at the bottom of the data table is a space for the average, for the minimum value, and the maximum value. So I'm going to show you how to do the dominant and non-dominant hand, how to do a graph. But I'm not going to calculate, of course, the averages and stuff for you. You need to do that. But this is how you would present your data in a graph. It should be a bar graph, a y-axis and an x-axis. The y-axis will be the reaction time in milliseconds. So always label your axes. The x-axis will be with the dominant hand and with the non-dominant hand. And this will be the subject. This is the title of the x-axis, subject catching ruler. You'll need to give this a figure number. And I always like to use the words the effect of, because that tells you what's in the graph. What are you testing? So it's something like the effect of hand dominance on reaction time. N equals, I can't remember, however many people were in that class. Yeah, so these are the units. Make sure you put in the correct units that will cover all of your data points. And then put the average for the dominant hand, the average for the non-dominant hand. I can't remember what it was. And those are your averages. Then what you want to do is to report the variation. So the variation is very important. So you're going to put your maximum value there, your minimum value down there, and connect it with a line. That's generally how it's done. Maximum value, minimum value, and a line. That's known as your range. So you should have a legend, and that is your range in the legend. And that is your average. So that's good. You've reported your average and your range in your graph. And now, as with any scientific paper, the results are summarized in a couple of statements. So don't forget to do your results summary, which is where you write in words what the graph indicates. So, and the reason that you do that is that why do you do that? I don't know, everybody does it. That's not the only reason, but it helps the person understand what's in your graph. Like for me, I can look at a graph and interpret it almost immediately because I've looked at so many graphs. But not everybody can do that. So sometimes it's better to add a results summary. Just write out in words what your graph shows. So you'll be doing 3 graphs, 3 bar graphs for each hypothesis and for each set of data. One thing that you'll notice is that for the Q comparison, which is comparing visual, auditory, and tactile cues, you're comparing those, you're using the visual dominant hand data again the second time. So you'll use the visual dominant hand data twice. And you'll do another graph for the patellar reflex. And that's your results section. 3 graphs, 3 summaries. And then from the results, you go into the discussion. The results are all about what you found, not why you found it. That doesn't come into it at all. The results section is only about what you found. No interpretation. But the discussion is about why you got those results. Why did you get those results? Well, the first thing you need to do is say whether or not your hypothesis was even supported. So first, answer the question, was your hypothesis supported? And And then you have to answer the question, why or why not? To answer that question, you need to know a little bit more about reactions and reflexes. So look at other studies. What have they found? Did they find something different or the same thing? There won't be any studies that are exactly the same, however. So that will let you know, well, perhaps your results really do reflect the general population. But sometimes there are errors in data collection or in the experimental design. But it doesn't matter. Either way, report what the literature shows as well as what you found. And that's the discussion section. And then you have a reference section. So far we've got McIntyre, G, sorry. Oh, I've only been away from work for, well, I mean, from the college for a year. I can't even remember how to spell McIntyre's name. There is no A, McIntyre. McIntyre G, 2017, etc. Lab manual, and write it out. So the format you'll need to use for your references is called Harvard. And you'll find that on my website, Harvard style formatting. How you cite with it and how you put together your reference section. And if you're using Word, at least in there are 11 messages. Uh-oh. Uh-huh. Sorry about that. I didn't see that. I'm not APA yet. Harvard. And that's on my website. So use that style, Harvard style. That's what science papers generally use, science journals. Yeah, the humanities, they use something else, but science usually uses Harvard style. So, yeah, what else? Oh yeah, very important, of course. Once you've done all that, you write an abstract, which is basically a summary. Why you did what you did, how you did it, and what you found. Yeah. Why you did the study, how, just briefly, how you did it, what your results were, and also why is it important? Why study reflexes and reactions of individuals? What does that help us as health professionals, for example. Yeah, so the abstract, you can't really do it until you've finished your report, but it does go in the beginning. Yeah. Goes in the beginning. It's usually only a half a page. So there's lots of good sources. In the back of your lab manual, indeed, there is a section. It's very good. It tells you exactly what to include in each section, pretty much just the way I've shown you. So on page 165, how to write a report. It's very good. It tells you everything that needs to be in there in general. And it also gives a citation. So there's very good examples in there of the Harvard style of citations. There's quite a few. Now, I think in Word, you can make a reference section and it will do it for you in Harvard style. Okay. What else did we want to say about that? Yes, you do summarize your findings in the abstract. Yes. What your results were. Yes, you do summarize it. Also, at the end of that particular lab that we just looked at, on page 41, there are some notes that Gordon has written about this particular lab report. So take a look at that as well. So this weekend, now that you've written your hypothesis already, you've got the data sheet. So this weekend, I would like you to do your graphs. You've done your hypotheses. Now I'd like you to do your graphs. All right, I'm going to stop there.